Ayubowan, I've just returned, like literally this minute from Sri Lanka, and I promised you guys I'd show you how to make hoppers, because everyone loves hoppers. Now, there's two ways. The first is the really hard way, using rice flour and grinding it. But there is a mix, this one, MDK hopper mix. Now, I've tried to make this before, and the big thing that I've found is they never worked. And you know why? Inside this packet is a packet of yeast. And if you just break the end off, which is what I normally do, and then tip it in, you don't get the packet of yeast. So I found the yeast, I've just put it into a bowl, which has just the hopper mixture and the yeast. And then I'm going to add water. The water just needs to be blood temperature so that it doesn't kill the yeast. And it depends on what country you're in. So if you're somewhere really cold, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get the whole thing to rise. So blood temperature, 30 odd degrees. You don't have to measure it though, just put your finger in, it should feel nice. And then we need to make a stiff batter. So have a look in here. This is basically rice flour. So just like corn flour, it's going to go quite hard. Whoops. Mix it and don't put too much water in. I have to say, totally disregard the instructions on the back, because I have been trying to follow them for ages. And what I'm bringing you is the secret of this mixture. So, you know when you make paper mache, that's what you want. A nice, thick batter paper mache. No lumps, nice and thick. You can see that? It's just dripping off my finger. The whole batter now is nice and warm. So what I'm going to do with that is put a cloth over the top, put it somewhere warm, maybe on the back of your oven, maybe somewhere in the heat. I'm in the Queensland climate, so even here it's a little bit too cool. It's got to be humid, 30 degrees or so, to make the yeast rise. While that's happening, you need to get a couple of things ready. You need some coconut milk powder. Now this is a very, very small powder available in Sri Lanka. I'm not endorsing anyone, but this brand is excellent. There's a couple of them on the market. Look for this brand all the time because it just works really well and doesn't separate. The other thing you'll need is some hopper pans. The hopper pans have been cured or seasoned, which I'll show you in a minute, but that is so important that you have them nice and smooth. A few lids and a scraper. But strangely in Sri Lanka what they do is they get a spoon and just bang it out so that it's totally flat, and I think that might work. Just going to have to wait now until it proves, which will be about 3 hours. The mixture now has been in here for an hour and a half. I turned the oven on, you can see down here, and the flues of the oven sort of gave it a little bit of heat. I turned it every now and again, and you can see that the mixture has started to crack and rise, meaning that the yeast itself is working. It's formed a bit of a skin, but you can see in there all the air bubbles. Right, so it's proved. It's nice and fluffy, lots of air in it. These are the ingredients that you'll need. You'll need to have 100 grams of coconut milk powder with 300 mils of water. If you make the water slightly warm, you won't get any lumps in the coconut powder, and you'll have a nice coconut milk. Give it a good whisk. So lightly fluff the egg. Make sure it's all combined. White sugar, not brown sugar this time because it'll colour the hopper mixture, and I don't want to do that. And some salt. So I always say use the same type of salt, but when you're using salt in this case, it would be better if it was just fine salt, finely ground salt. Sugar into the mixture as well. And then I want to make sure I get all of the egg, so I'm going to put that actually into the hopper mix. And now, see the air bubbles in that? It's beautiful. Mix that through. And as soon as you whisk it, you're knocking all the air out of it. Give the milk a bit of a whisk and add about half to start, because the consistency of this is quite important. Too thick and they're going to be gluggy. Too thin and you won't get the special thing that hoppers have, and that's that crumple-like feel right in the centre. I've used it all because I think this mix is going to be perfect. I'll get a whisk, I'll get a ladle, and I'll show you how it should be. Quite a thin mixture. It's like a very light pancake batter. Give it a stir. We'll put this away for another half an hour, let it prove again, and then we'll see if it worked. The batter has sat here for about 20 minutes. It's still very, very thin. One of the most important things to do is always stir it. Now, the next is the pan. You have to make sure that the pan is cured. And by cured, you just basically put some oil into it and get it heated up. Then add salt. Swirl it around so that it fills up all the holes. Take that out. Cook a scrambled egg in it to see whether it sticks on the sides. Wipe it out and then wipe it with a little bit of sesame oil. Once the pan's cured, this is what we do. We have the pan on, and the best way to tell whether it's hot or not, just put it up to your face and you can feel the heat radiating off the pan. There should be no smoke coming off the pan at all. You also need some sesame oil. So with a little bit of sesame oil, just rub it all the way around the pan. You don't need a thick layer, it just needs to be enough to cover it and to grease it. Every time you make a hopper, make sure that you stir the mixture. Then place it into the center and swirl, ensuring that you get every bit of it. If there's a little bit too much, you can tip it out, and then if there's some that's come around the edges, you can just cut it off. And then just as it starts to set, we crack an egg. Always crack the egg separate. Place it into the center and put a lid on it. Now you have to wait. And once the hopper goes on, the heat has to be turned down. That's full blast, and you can see that it's turned right down. Otherwise, the hopper will burn. Now, it's been about 1.5 minutes. I haven't touched the lid. It's really important not to take the lid off, because the steam is just as important to cook this thing as is the heat underneath it. Now, I can have a look. Come in and check this out. It's starting to peel away from the sides, but you can see that over here, there's more heat on this side than that. So I'm just turning it. It's not quite ready, but when it peels away from the pan there, that's a great sign. I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper. Pepper on my hopper, put the lid back on, and steam it for another 30 seconds or so. All of 3.5 minutes have gone. The hopper will be ready. Come inside and have a look. The egg now has set, the hopper's starting to peel away, and to remove it without breaking it, you need to do this. Hold it off the flame, give it a tap, and that, if your pot has been cured enough, should be enough. And then it should just slide out. And there you have a beautiful hopper. How do I know if it's worked really well? A couple of things. The edges will be crisp. Underneath, it should hold, but underneath should be a nice golden color, and the center should be a bit like a crumpet. Let's break it open and see. See that? Like a crumpet, all fluffy, but crispy on the outside. Sri Lankan egg hoppers in Noosa. Enjoy it wherever you are.